So what's going on, guys? My name's Chopper and welcome everybody to today's video. Now what we're going to be doing today is looking at the 10 guns that used to be overpowered in PUBG. So this is either weapons that used to be amazing and either got nerfed, or a weapon that was in the game the entire time but there was nothing else to really compete with it, so it was just considered overpowered. Now real quick guys, if I sound a little bit different in this video, I apologize. I just had my wisdom teeth removed the other day and I'm still recovering from that. I still got stitches in and everything, so I'm going to try not to break them open while I'm recording this commentary. Today is going to be a little bit of a trip down PUBG memory lane, and if you guys want to see more stuff like this and if you enjoy the video, be sure to leave a like rating. That would be absolutely amazing. And if you've not already subscribed to the channel yet, what are you doing? Make sure to go ahead and do that. That would be insane. You won't want to miss out on daily PUBG stuff we got going on here, and I'd really appreciate it. So anyways guys, let's go ahead and get into the top 10 guns that used to be overpowered in PUBG. Oh, and one real quick thing, some of these guns might still be considered overpowered by your terms in the game, but they are still guns that can be good but used to be a lot more powerful in the past. Wanted to make sure I mentioned that because it's pretty important for some of these. But anyways, all right guys, so coming in today, the number 10 spot is got to be the Tommy gun. Now it's wild because the Tommy gun used to be one of the most feared and respected guns in the game, especially when it was just a crate weapon and it held 100 rounds in the magazine. Like, it was unbelievable. It used to fire much faster, it was easier to control, it was faster on the reload as well. Like, it was an all-around beast. But now the Tommy gun has been worked down to where I would say it's considered one of the average or lower tier weapons in the game, and it's kind of sad, to be honest, because it's such a cool weapon to use. And for a lot of people, the Tommy gun represented like the gun to go for in PUBG. This was the AWM out of airdrops, essentially. Like, this was the gun that everybody wanted to get for the most part. Current day in PUBG, if you see somebody running around with a Tommy gun, or if you see it in the kill feed, you're gonna probably assume that they're a noob and you won't really be afraid of them. But back then, man, when this was in its prime, like, this is a gun that you would run away from. And nowadays, it's probably one of the least popular weapons on the battlefield. But I really do think that if they restored the 100-round magazine capability back on the Tommy gun, kept the recoil and damage, everything else the same, but just made it so you can hold 100 if you wanted, then this would encourage players to maybe use it a little bit more, in my opinion. But yeah, this had to be the Tommy gun, one of the saddest nerfs of all time in video game history. You really hate to see it. Okay, but moving on, and coming in today at the number 9 spot is going to be the Vector. So currently on PC, the Vector now fires 9mm, and I assume that this update is going to be rolling out to every other platform in the near future. Now, this used to fire 45 rounds. The old Vector and the UMP switched bullets, essentially, what they fire. So it fires 9mm, and it just doesn't feel quite the same. It doesn't hit as hard as it used to. But back in the day when the Vector used to fire 45, and before any of its tweaks, the Vector was an unbelievable SMG laser. It was one of those guns where you'd see tons of montages on YouTube with it, of like a lot of the early Twitch streamers getting crazy kills with it. Like, it was the go-to for a lot of those guys. But the unfortunate thing is that it just happens. The Vector has changed a lot over time, and especially from its original beginning. But back when it had its glory day, back in its heyday, the Vector was a force to be reckoned with, that's for sure. You could make the argument, and I think it would hold up back then, that the Vector may have been the literal best weapon in the game for a certain period of time. Before some other things got added and, you know, people learned how to play the game differently, the Vector, because most people fought up close, and the Vector was just insane at that. If you ever played early PUBG, then if you know, you know. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, coming today at the number 8 spot, it's got to be the UMP9, and for a very short period of time as well, just like the Vector, this, I think, had its time in the spotlight. Now, this was when it was the UMP9, and back when there was a patch where it essentially had zero recoil whatsoever. Up until the last patch, obviously, that makes it fire different bullets, the UMP has always fired 9mm, so no matter what, no matter which way you want to look at it, it never really was a melt machine, and it never put out a ton of damage at once, but it was always very consistent, and it was an easy gun to use as well. And I'd say for a little bit there, the UMP had this sweet spot where it was a great cross between an AR and an SMG. You could really use it interchangeably between the two. I think now the MP5 does it way better than the UMP. I think that might be one of the most overpowered guns in the game right now, actually. But regardless of that, the UMP9 used to be amazing. I'm not so sure how I feel about the UMP45 yet. I don't know if I maybe had enough playtime or whatever. I'm just not so sure if I'm in love with the guns, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes. Nowadays, I don't really take the UMP anywhere past the mid game, because normally I'm going to find something a little bit better, and it's just not going to be, it's already run its course by that point, you know what I mean? But moving into the number 7 spot, this is a weird gun. This is the SK12, and this is one of the most strange guns that I've ever had to talk about, because on paper, I think this weapon should be great, right? For example, it's a semi-auto shotgun, and you can put assault rifle attachments on it, and while it might do slightly less damage than the other shotguns per shot, you'd think that everything else would make up for it, and this would be just unbelievably overpowered. But the thing thing is, it's really not. I think this is one of the guns that genuinely was like perceived wrong by the community, and I think that they thought it was overpowered just because of the way that it behaved, when really it wasn't when you're actually using it on the battlefield, because it like I said, it's insane on paper, and it should be the best gun in the game, but when you actually have it performance-wise, it's just rather okay. But next, coming up at the number 6 spot, is a gun that I told you guys is slowly becoming one of my favorites of all time, and this is the M249 Lmg. Now, back before the DP28 got added, and that was a common spawn, the M249 for the longest time was the only LMG in the entire game. And I think it was actually overpowered in its time because there was nothing else that could really compete with it as far as like actual DPS and how much it could put out without having to reload. Because earlier on in the game, you know, when everybody was just way less good than they are nowadays, nobody really knew how to shoot, and the M249 was like the only gun that you could afford to whiff 60 shots in a row on a certain guy and still manage to pick off 2 or 3 other guys with the rest of your magazine, as you still have 40 left. So I think the M249 definitely used to be overpowered, but not for the reason you think. Like, it statistically didn't ever really change as far as I'm concerned, but it was one of those things that just the meta and the culture around it changed, but it used to just be at the top of the food chain. And don't get me wrong, the gun is still amazing. There's a reason why it's still only an airdrop weapon, but it does have a little bit more competition nowadays. All right, but moving on here and getting into our top 5. The number 5 spot I'm going to give to the VSS, and I feel like this is the inverse of the SK12, where it looks great on paper, but it's kind of trash, to be honest. But the VSS is terrible on paper, but it can actually be a really effective weapon. Now, I'm not sure how many of you remember this, but there was also a time where the VSS indeed was an airdrop weapon as well, just like the Tommy gun was, and it even had VSS specific attachments. There was a magazine and a special cheek pad that you could get for the VSS, and I think that kind of like the M249, it falls in the same boat where this gun was overpowered because nobody really knew how to play against it, and for the most part, to be fair, in PUBG, people still don't really know how to play against the VSS. But especially when the gun was a lot more rare, and early on in the game when nobody really knew what they were doing, you were a ghost if you were shooting somebody with this weapon. Like, you were actually invisible. It's always been a rather niche weapon, and if you're good with it, then you're good with it, but if you're not, then it's pretty miserable. But it's definitely a gun that I would say is overpowered, and especially during its time. Okay, guys, so coming in now at the number 4 spot is going to be the Groza, the fan favorite, the all-time classic. Now, this is one of the guns that I really, more than anything, falls into the category of this gun was overpowered because there was nothing else to compete with it at the time. There was no really other 7.62 assault rifle besides the AKM that could even touch the Groza, and even then, like, this gun absolutely dominated the AKM. And I think everybody loved it because the Groza was just a god among men for a lot of people, and before all the new weapons got added, there was just nothing that even performance-wise would come close to this gun. But the thing is, if you really look at the Groza, it's great up close, right? It's got a wicked DPS, but it kind of sucks at range, and it does have its weaknesses as well. The Groza definitely deserves its spot in the Hall of Fame for sure. Like, you can't take it away from that, but now there's just so much more that can actually compete with the Groza, namely the barrel. Now, finally getting into our top 3, and coming in today at the 3rd spot, it's got to be the M24 sniper. Now, again, this used to be unbelievably overpowered when it was an airdrop sniper. If you can really believe this at the time, this used to be more comparable to the AWM than it was the Carnage 8K, right? So right now, the 2 bolt action snipers that we can find on the ground are, of course, the K9 and the M24. And this, like, the M24 is still statistically better just in every way, but, you know, you can prefer the Carnage 8. It's marginal differences. You'd want to go with this weapon, but at the end of the day, it's your decision. But before this one actually got nerfed, its damage nerfed and everything, this was more closer related to an AWM sniper that you could just have essentially infinite ammo for, because it's not limited like the 300 rounds are. Like, you could find 7.62 basically anywhere, so it was great in that regard. And I don't know if it was a great decision to take it out of drops and nerf it, to be honest, because now all it does is overshadow the Carnage 8 and make it not useless, but it makes it something that it just makes it inferior. So I don't know how I feel about that. Let me know in the comment section if you guys think taking the M24 out of drops was a good idea, or if you think it should be back to its original self, how its damage and everything else used to be. It's an interesting concept, but we'll have to see. But the M24 just used to be unbelievably good. But getting away from that weapon, and now coming in today at the number 2 spot, it's got to be the M16 Assault Rifle. And gosh, man, I just miss when this gun actually used to be really good, you know? Like, it's still viable and you can still get kills with it, but the gun is now very bouncy, it's unpredictable, and it fires really slow in between shots. But when the game came out and the M16 was the most god tier weapon, there was essentially no horizontal recoil, very easy to control vertical recoil, and there was no delay in between the bursts of shots either. And you could put an 8x on it, you could fire in single, so it was a DMR DMR, sniper, assault rifle all in one. Like, it was easy to understand why this used to be the most broken gun in the game, but I loved it when it was, man. I really do. Just looking at old gameplay of the classic M16 just makes me so reminiscent about the early days of this game and really just kind of how the meta used to be. It's crazy to see how far we've come as players and how much the game has changed just in terms of its like overall mechanics and everything like that, but I think it's all for the better. But finally, ladies and gentlemen, coming in today at the #1 spot is got to be my boy, the Mini 14. Now, don't get me wrong, I still love this weapon, and it's probably one of my favorite guns in the game still right now. But lads, when this gun came to PUBG, it was from a different planet. I don't know what they were thinking when they added this to the game, but when it came, you could two-shot a level 3 helmet with a Mini 14, and that wasn't even the craziest part. The best part about it was that it had the fastest bullets in the game, and what this ended up doing was that every other gun in the game, you have to lead your shots, and you have to kind of, you know, compensate for bullet travel time and all that sort of stuff, but the Mini 14 was like more of a hit scan than anything. You just aim, and you click at the enemy, and they die. It was that simple. So to nerf this, they had to make the Mini 14's bullets a lot slower, and the thing is, they're still pretty fast, like how they are in the game. The Mini 14 has one of the faster bullets in the game. I think the only thing that's a little bit better than it is the AWM currently, but still, like, it's still definitely up there, and they really nerfed the damage as well, which, considering what it used to be able to do, I'd say was really appropriate. This has to be the most broken gun that they've added, like, obviously before pre-patch. I think right now it's in a great spot, and, you know, it's fair in the game, and people like the Mini 14 overall, and it's useful, but when they added it, man, this was just a disaster. Guys, can we get F's in chat for all of these weapons, for all of our fallen brothers, all of these guns that used to sit in the throne of honor and power and used to just dominate the battlefield of PUBG? We need to pay a little respect for all of these weapons here. But it was really cool to look back at all these and kind of look at where they came from and how they used to perform. But anyways, guys, I think that is going to be the video for today. Let me know if you remember using these weapons when they were overpowered and which ones were your favorite. Let me know in the comment section down below. But if you guys did enjoy this video, be sure to leave a like rating, subscribe if you are brand new to the channel before you go, of course. Also, make sure to check out my second channel, which is now linked in the description. I'm doing more content over there, so if you're a supporter here, I'd really appreciate if you could check that one out as well. It'd mean the world to me. Make sure you go follow my Twitter and Instagram, which are both down below as well. And anyways, I'll see you all on the next stream or the next video. Have a good one, and peace out.